Hi everyone, my name is Usman Rafiq. I am from Free University of Bolzano and I'm going to present our paper Analytics Mistakes that Derail Software Startups. I co-authored this paper with my colleagues Jorge, Melegati, Dron, Khanna, Eduardo and Xiaofeng, Wang. Today we witness that a lot of software startups are created around the world every day, and these startups are driving the innovation and the economy. Software startups, while they share a lot of common characteristics with other normal companies, they differ a lot in some perspectives as well, and they are challenging and they subject to a high failure rate. Statistics show that the failure rate is alarmingly high. More than 90% of the startups at different stages they fail. They need to move fast and react fast in response to the fast and frequent feedback loops. And while moving fast, they need to balance between the time to market and the product quality. Therefore, this involves critical nature of the decisions, and this decision making process requires information. Information further creates awareness among the co-founders and among the team members. There is a lack of research investigating how to deal with information from analytics perspective. Therefore, the focus of this paper is to understand what analytics mistakes do software startups make. So, to answer the main research question, we systematically analyzed a set of online post-mortem reports of failed software startups collected from a database of very well-known private platform for startups known as CB Insights. We collected this data, and as a very first step we collected the data until 2020 edition, and we this resulted in 353 text-based post-mortem reports. In the next step, we applied our inclusion and exclusion criteria, and we included the software startups as our focus is on the software startups, and we excluded hardware startups in this step. Next, in step number 3, we looked for the founder's personal statement in the post-mortem reports. It means that the report must have been written by one of the co-founders, and it further means that it's not a media news or the closure notice from the company. At the end of the step number 3, we found 109 reports in total. In step number 4, two individual researchers individually read each of the 109 reports and then tried to assess the usefulness of this report according to the research question. We found 40 reports for further examination. Going in the same vein, in the step number 5, an individual researcher coded the data using a tool NVivo, and then open coding was applied, and then chunks were created, and then all of the codes were brought in the team discussion, and then codes were classified according to the themes. So therefore, all the coded data were containing only 22 reports, and we classified 10 themes into 4 high-level themes. So we, at the end of this research procedure, we present analytics mistakes that software startups do while dealing with information. Here is the glimpse of all of the 22 software startup companies whose post-mortem reports are used in our paper. As you can see, most of these companies are geographically located in America and Canada, and there are some companies from some other regions like Europe and Asia. If we talk about the product of these software companies, then the most of these companies were having a web-based product, and there are a few instances where the company was having both web and mobile applications. And in regarding the business domain, the companies were offering solutions from media to social media platforms and e-commerce and software as a service. So these are the findings of our paper. We classified the mistakes into four high-level categories, and these categories explain the most reported mistakes that could contribute to the failure of a software startup. The classification of mistakes into these themes was guided by the analytics framework, which is presented in our paper. So there are the categories are information collection, information analysis, information communication, and finally the information usage. Now I would explain each of the category one by one. So the first category and the most reported category is information collection. We came to the realization that startups are aware of the information need and they are collecting information. There are four mistakes in this category, and the first one is focusing on the unproductive key information. We found instances in software startup companies where software startups told that they were focusing on the unproductive information, which led wrong decisions, and they decided to elicit the information, monitor the information with a good intention. However, they were end up in doing something unproductive. For instance, one of the media startups was one of the social media startups. They were confused about what should they monitor, what kind of information, engagement or growth, which strategy they should follow. So that they selected the engagement and they designed product features according to the engagement strategy. However, they end up in failure because soon they realize that social media is the business where they need a lot of growth, not only the engagement. Similarly, there were some other instances, there were some other mistakes like trying to collect everything. This is also a catastrophic mistake because here you overly measure everything, all the information, and as a result the result of this over measurement is that the information is overloaded and it cannot help to take a good decision. So the more information you measure, the less prioritized you would be. The next mistake is collecting vanity metrics. This mistake is also one of the most reported mistakes. Vanity metrics show fascinating numbers, but they do not contribute towards the real decision making process. And startups were measuring number of visitors, number of downloads, number of customers on the very first day, on the launch day, for instance. And last mistake in this category is avoiding to collect information. There were some examples in software startup companies where they avoided to collect the information. Therefore, the decisions taken in the absence of information because of the overconfidence in the abilities of the software startup founders. So they did not keep for the information. The next, after the information collection process, there is information analysis category. And information analysis category, the first mistake is mishandling the information. Usually they collected the information, but it was not processed in a right way. So, in this mistake, software startups, for example, one of the software startups, they knew there are some missteps in the product, and still they launched the product. Also, startups believed in the what customers said, and therefore they mentioned that they really need to understand the customer psychology, and they really need modern customer research methods to truly understand the information needs of the customer. In the next mistake, misinterpreting information, all of the decision making was done with the customer hands, or startups listen to the media or the numbers. They did not use their own intuition or the data to make the decisions. Last mistake in this category is confirmation biases related to the cognitive bias. Startups ignored information because founders thought that this information does not conform to their own perception of the idea. So they did not listen to the customers or the information. They just made decisions solely according to their own logic. The third category is information communication, and in this kind of mistake, we observed a poor team communication among the founders. And being a startup where there are no formal procedures, it was a problem in communicating. So, how to communicate the perceived information to the team members? This was the main theme, and this action becomes particularly important when the startups need to change the directions and adjust themselves to the new information. For example, immediately after a product market fit analysis. So founders blamed their leadership abilities, and because they failed to communicate where the ship is heading to other team members. As a last mistake, we have information usage, and in this mistake, startups reacted slowly to a piece of information, and observe the decline in customer growth, yet continue with old strategies, decisions, ignored expert advice as well. And the last mistake in this category is planning fallacy. Startups overestimated their abilities, and they underestimated the project complexity. It resulted, for example, the cash burn on additional activities. In the discussion section, we see that product and business dimensions were exclusively affected by the mistakes made by the software startups, and at least they are aware of the information needs. While information collection is a primordial need of the software startups, and at the same time, they did mistakes in this category. A possible explanation for this problem is that startups are constantly searching for the scalable business and the product model, therefore, they do not know beforehand what to monitor. Similarly, there is a repetitive mistake while dealing with analytics. For instance, like vanity metrics mistakes, vanity metrics, giving importance and making the vanity metrics. This is the mistakes which was about already warned by the practitioner books in lean analytics. And critical mistake, use of sometimes they found use of unproductive information in the decision making. This is also related to the wrong direction by designing and offering unwanted product features and acquisition strategies based on. So overall, they require some criteria to decide what is really important for them to monitor. To conclude our study, we found 10 mistakes classified into 4 categories while dealing with analytics. Startups need to focus on the most actionable and crucial information, therefore, so that they can reduce uncertainty and to make further decisions, to help to aid them further decisions. Most of the startups made mistakes in information collection process, and therefore prioritization shall be to according to the information needs, and this prioritization shall be in line with the original product vision. There are some other recommendation for software startups as an alert to avoid falling in the same pitfalls. uh, One of those is avoid tracking the vanity metrics, and don't try to overload the information, as startups are highly reactive organizations. Therefore, you need to, as a startup, you need to react very fast in response to the newly arrived information. And last but not least is having the ability to communicate the new information with the team. I thank you everyone, and I'm open to the questions now. Thank you.